When talking about Volume 12 of Sword Princess, the side stories for DanMachi, this is, of course, I would kind of count it as the big finale for this big chapter of this epic saga. And I mean, this has been kind of hinted at since Volume 1, and there are definitely a lot of things that I've said in the previous volumes that now everything's kind of finally unfolded and all the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle have come together. And I really gotta say a thank you to the entire DanMachi community for not spoiling the end of this story, because there have been so many opportunities people could have just dropped a little spoiler in the comment section, but surprisingly no one did. The only comments I got were people saying, I'm really excited to see your thoughts on volume 11 and 12 to kind of see as things kind of unfold. And a lot of the things I said in volume 11 are now no longer true because everything changed in volume 12, which has been an absolute roller coaster. And of course, I did make one mistake in volume 11, which was where I said one god had died in the volume. That was actually incorrect. Actually, two died, but one of them was kind of like a cover-up for another god. So technically, yes, two gods did die in the previous volume, and even more died in this volume. So there's been a lot of deaths, not just from familiar members, but also gods and goddesses around. And it's definitely one of those where, honestly, I feel like the Sword Princess side stories is quite dark and gruesome, especially from the early stages all the way up to the recent volumes. It's just been a crazy ride, to say the least, and everything's kind of been foreshadowed and hinted at all the way from volume 1, which is why I'm just, again, really impressed that the actual fanbase didn't spoil the ending for me, because when I've read other light novel series, I've had people dump web novel spoilers in the comment section a lot, especially when it comes to slime. A lot of people have tried to like throw spoilers in ways that it is just almost unavoidable to read. And it's been really annoying when reading the slime volumes that people have been deliberately trying to spoil it for me, and no one's done it for Sword Princess, so thank you so much, because finding out everything in this volume was just an amazing treat. And for those that kind of want to know what I'm going on about, of course, which is to do with Philvis. Philvis apparently died in volume 11, but technically didn't. Of course, there's this ability that she has where she's able to duplicate herself. She has these sort of split personality. She didn't actually die in the previous volume, and Lefia is still mourning her death until she finds out that she's still alive. And that's where Loki is like next level chess player, because Loki knows what's going on like 5 steps ahead of everyone else. She's kind of piecing everything together, and I really have kind of grown to liking Loki, especially in this volume where she starts kicking one of the gods and starts beating the living crap out of him and just keeps going and going and going and going. And it just kind of shows that she's a nice god to, you know, the mortal realm, but she definitely has her darker side, and she does not put up with bad people, so to say. And I really just kind of liked that more darker side of Loki, because it showed that, again, Loki does have a switch that can be flicked that just makes her get really, really angry. And I don't blame her, to be completely honest. I mean, what some of these people were trying to do were really, really bad. Like, they were trying to basically create this sort of ritual spell, which is like a secret art, which is the door of heaven, that blows a giant hole through the ceiling of a dungeon and unleashes absolute havoc. And basically, in the words of one of the gods, saying it was going to turn the city into hell and destroy the entire city, which is to do with the 6 great spirits. The Loki familiars are trying to find out more about it, and they struggle to find out anything at all. They go to the gnome's great library trying to piece things together, and they're unable to, until they bump into our best boy, Cranel, and he is just a walking, talking encyclopedia of knowledge when it comes to this stuff. He knows everything they needed to know, which allowed them to kind of piece things together, and it allowed them to gain the knowledge that they needed to work out what the plan was. And that's what I really loved about this volume, was that all the pieces of the puzzle came together with finding out everything, and it almost felt like sort of like an Avengers type of thing, because everyone came together. It wasn't just the Loki familiars, it was also Hestia's familiar members. You had all of them there, even Otto was there, and that's what I mean. Everyone came together. You name it, they were in this volume helping out in some way, shape or form. I do feel like there is so much more to explore when it comes to the Loki familiars, the dungeon, and I'm not just meaning from like Belle's side of things, but also the Loki familiar members, because I've grown quite attached to some of the Loki familiar members. Of course, the Amazon girls, but he's alright. I do enjoy him from time to time, though he's kind of one of those you love to hate. And then Lefia as well. I mean, from an anime perspective, I hate Lefia, but from a light novel perspective, Lefia has grown on me, and I kind of like the fact that she's not as grindy and clingy and all that. She's definitely kind of got a little bit warmed up to Belle as well. That was one thing I didn't really like in the anime and the early stages of the light novels, was that Lefia was very tsundere-like when it came to Belle, and there is kind of a part of me that thinks that Lefia might have some feelings for Belle, very minor. I think it's more of a sense of respect than it is actual general feelings. I mean, again, the person that's gonna have the feelings is obviously going to be Eyes, and that is something that, again, kind of gets hinted at a little bit more in this volume as well, right at the end, because Belle is one of the major players in defeating the opponents. Like, everyone contributes, but Belle uses his Argonaut ability, which, again, with the bell sound, it ends up sort of reinvigorating everyone's drive to want to fight the enemies back, and Eyes is kind of going almost to the dark side in a sense with her powers and her abilities, and it's drawing her into a negative mindset. And Belle's ability is very loud, and she can hear the bell noise, and so she's kind of refocused, revitalized, and kind of remembers that, you know, there is still good out there, and Belle is a massive inspiration to her. And that's what I really love, is that Eyes wants a hero. Eyes wants to be saved by someone, and Belle is that person. I mean, as much as she's very strong, she's very independent, but at the end of the day, she wants to lean on someone else and have them lean on her. And Belle is that person, because Belle is not invincible. He needs help. He has his friends. He has his familiar members, but also he has Eyes. Eyes has helped him throughout the story, not just for the Sword Princess, but also for the main story. And she's definitely been a major pillar in helping Belle grow, not just through training, but also inspiration. And it's the exact same for her as well. Belle has been an inspiration on her. So I really do love that kind of leaning on each other, and that is something that happens at the end of this volume, where Belle kind of is sort of fell asleep, he's sitting there, and then he just kind of slowly falls onto Eyes' shoulder, and then Eyes does the same back, and they fall asleep on each other. I think it's absolutely heartwarming. I really love the chemistry between them, because again, they are two characters that are honestly born to be together. Again, I know a lot of people are going to be like, but aren't you a Freya fanboy? And yes, I am a Freya fanboy, but at the same time, I understand when the story is obviously going in a certain direction, and it is clear that Eyes is the endgame when it comes to the romance, so I'm not going to stand in their way, but I do really love Freya, and I do look forward to seeing more of Freya, not just in this side story stuff as well, but also in the main story as well, because again, Freya's been throughout this story as well, through the early stages all the way through, and I mean, Otter was in this as well, so Otter did jump in to help as well. I mean, overall, I definitely see a lot more growth for the characters. I mean, Eyes has still got a lot of growth, Bet's still got a lot of growth, Finn was in this volume as well. What I liked about Finn was that Finn did give some of the command to Lily, and Lily kind of stood up a bit more higher on that sort of mark of being able to give orders, not just to her own familiar members, but also to the Loki familiar members, and they listened to Lily, which is really awesome to see that Lily can work with other familiar members. And I made a video not long ago talking about how I've always believed that the Loki familiar members and Hestia's familiar members are gonna have to work together to defeat greater opponents, and I think this really shows that it can happen. As much as Loki and Hestia do not get along, I think there is a lot of potential for them putting their differences aside, having a common enemy, and working together. And I think as much as they definitely give each other flack, I don't think they really hate each other. I think they just kind of, they get on each other's nerves, and they kind of like to sort of shit stir each other. And I think that's really as far as it goes. I don't think they hate each other. I don't think they're arch nemesis, born and destined to fight to the end of time. I don't think that's the case. I think it's just more they kind of rub each other the wrong way occasionally, and then they just kind of like to dig at each other about certain assets that they may or may not have. And I think that's kind of as far as it goes. It's kind of like a love-hate relationship, and I like that. I do really enjoy that, because the end of the day, no relationship's going to be perfect. There's always going to be kind of those moments where you kind of want to have a dig at your own friend. I definitely see them building the friendship though as time goes on, especially when they find a common enemy. And I think you're going to see that possibly in the later on volumes when we do get more volumes of this. I just don't know if they'll call it like volume 13 or if they'll just call it something different. I do know someone pointed out that the author was going to call something to do with fairy something, which was more to do with Lefia, and maybe that's what's going to happen. Lefia might get her own volume. I don't know. But now that Lefia is nowhere near as grindy, I can definitely get behind a volume dedicated to her. Again, I had my gripes. She's grown as a character, and I really enjoy seeing more of her and seeing her growth, because I kind of would like to see a little bit more chemistry between her and Belle, because I think it's still kind of like that tsundere thing, and I kind of like the respect that they have for each other. I don't want a romance there. I don't want her to be part of the harem. I just want them to have a deep respect for each other and a sense of working together. The Xenos are also in this as well. Ray is by far my favorite Xeno, and I do love Ween, but Ray just kind of has a soft spot, and the fact that Ray has a crush on Belle, and she was about to say it to one of the Amazon girls from the Loki family, and then she kind of like mutters and kind of tongue ties a little bit. I thought that was really adorable. But again, the Xenos are in this, they're helping as well. As I mentioned before, everyone's in this volume. They're all working together to fight the greater enemy, and I think that was what was really awesome. I loved it. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What did you like about this volume? What stood out to you? I would like to do some more videos on DanMachi in the future, kind of just unraveling more of my thoughts. I do want to reread some of these volumes, because now that everything's kind of pieced together, I kind of want to kind of go through some of them and kind of dissect pieces that, you know, I kind of did not foresee, things that kind of add to the pieces of the puzzle. There's just so much that really I feel like I've kind of just gone in one ear and out the other, and I feel like I need to read it at least a second time to kind of really digest all the major events that played out, because the author has gotten a lot better at his writing as well, which is definitely good. I really enjoy some of the amazing fight scenes that happen in it, though definitely some of them do draw out a little bit, but again, I love it. I love the light novels. Love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What are your thoughts about the light novels? Who's your favorite character? Why do you love them? But if you like this video, hit the like button. Subscribe for more anime content, and I will see you, beautiful nerds, in the next video.